Have you ever looked at your bank account and felt like you're earning good money, but somehow you're still falling behind each month? Well, today we're going to break down a real-world scenario of how to turn a pretty scary monthly deficit into a powerful savings machine. This is your step-by-step guide to taking back control.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll get to the bottom of the problem. Then we'll make an immediate survival move to stop the bleeding. After that, it's time to go on the offensive with some smart, strategic cuts. From there, we'll map out the new timeline to our goal, and we'll finish up with a simple action plan you can use.
Okay, let's dive right in. Before you can fix anything, you have to get real about the size of the problem. And in this case, it all boils down to one very, very specific number.
There it is. Over $1,000 in the red every single month. That's the figure at the very heart of this issue. It's a classic case of more money going out than coming in, and it creates this constant cycle of stress. But as you're about to see why this is happening, well, it's probably not what you think.
So you have to ask, right? How does this even happen? Especially with a solid income, a deficit this big just doesn't seem to make sense. Let's play detective and follow the money to find the real source of the overspending.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting, because this slide reveals a kind of hidden trap. The income is great, right? Over $4,700. But look closer. This person is trying to save almost $1,400 on top of more than $4,000 in expenses. They're actually trying to do the right thing by saving like crazy, but that ambition is exactly what's pushing them into the red.
And this pie chart just lays it all out there plain as day. Look at the three biggest slices of the pie: housing, transportation, and that huge savings goal. This visual just confirms it. These are really the only places where a cut will be big enough to actually fix the problem.
So let's get into our first big actionable step. When you find yourself in a financial hole, what's the first rule? Stop digging. And this first move does exactly that. It stops the bleeding immediately.
And let's just be crystal clear on what we're fixing here. Negative cash flow just means you're spending more than you make. But remember, it's not always about over-the-top expenses. As we just saw, a really aggressive savings goal can be a huge part of that outgoing money that pushes your budget off a cliff.
And here it is, the first move. It feels a little counterintuitive, but it's absolutely brilliant. We're not even touching expenses yet. Instead, we adjust the savings goal. You just take the current savings number, that $1,383, and subtract the amount you're overspending. That leaves you with a new, realistic survival savings amount of about $293. And just like that, the budget is balanced. You're no longer going backwards each month.
Okay, we stopped the bleeding. We're stable. Now we get to shift from playing defense to playing offense. This is the fun part, where we start building a surplus that's going to fund all our future goals.
The key here is we're not trying to cut everything to the bone. No way. Instead, we're focusing on two of the biggest, most flexible categories: transportation and food. The plan is to slice $200 from transportation and another $250 from food spending. These are big, targeted cuts that are going to make a real difference. And here is the payoff for that work. You combine those two smart cuts, and suddenly you've created a brand new, powerful monthly surplus of $450. This isn't just about breaking even anymore. This is about creating positive cash flow that we can now point like a fire hose toward our biggest financial goals.
That $450 surplus, that's the engine for our entire financial turnaround. So let's pull out the map. Where is this new engine going to take us, and, how long till we get there? Now, what's so important to understand is that we're not just saving money for the sake of saving. No, there's a very specific destination, a $22,200 emergency fund. That number isn't random. It represents 6 solid months of security. It's a buffer against a job loss, a medical emergency, you name it. What we're really doing here is buying peace of mind.
This timeline really breaks down the journey beautifully. That new $450 surplus gets to work right away. And check this out. In just 5 months, you hit the first huge milestone, a $2,000 starter emergency fund. That's a huge win that creates incredible momentum. And then you just stay consistent, and the final goal is hit in about 4 years. It's a marathon for sure, but it's one with really clear and motivating mile markers along the way.
So, let's bring this all together. We've gone from diagnosis all the way to cure, and it really boils down to a simple checklist that sums up the entire turnaround strategy. This is your playbook. Step 1. Adjust your savings so you stop going backwards immediately. Step 2. Make those targeted cuts in your high spend areas to create that surplus. Step 3, channel every penny of that new surplus directly into your emergency fund. And finally, Step 4, track your progress like a hawk to stay motivated. It's a simple, powerful, and totally repeatable process.
We just walked through a complete financial turnaround, from a $1,000 deficit to a clear path to a $22,000 safety net. And it all started by figuring out and changing just one number. So the question I want to leave you with is this: what's the first number you need to change to start writing your own turnaround story?